A single father working as a janitor took down 4 armed men with nothing but a mop. But when the CEO discovered his true identity, she realized her company's darkest secrets were about to be exposed. What happened next changed everything, not just for Aurora Tower, but for corporate America itself. Stay with me until the end of this incredible true story, and let me know in the comments what city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story travels. The marble floors of Aurora Tower's 52nd floor gleamed like mirrors under the crystal chandeliers, each surface polished to perfection by hands that most people never bothered to notice. In the corporate world of downtown Chicago, there existed an invisible army of workers who kept the engines of capitalism running: the security guards, the maintenance crews, the cleaning staff who arrived when the executives went home and disappeared before they returned. Noah Hale was one of these invisible men. At 34, Noah moved through the corridors of Aurora Tower with the quiet efficiency of someone who had learned to be overlooked. His navy blue uniform bore the simple patch, "Evening Maintenance," and his cart rattled softly as he navigated between conference rooms and corner offices. To the few employees who worked late, he was simply the janitor. A polite smile, a respectful nod, someone who cleaned up their messes and asked no questions. But Noah Hale was far more than what met the eye. "Daddy, you forgot your lucky bracelet again." The memory of his 8-year-old daughter Lily's voice echoed in his mind as he absently touched the blue braided cord around his wrist. She had made it for him 6 months ago, shortly after his wife Sarah had lost her battle with cancer. The word "breathe" was spelled out in small white beads, Lily's way of reminding him to stay calm when the world felt overwhelming. "When you feel scared or angry, just touch it and breathe, Daddy," she had told him, with the earnest wisdom that only children possess. "It's like having a piece of me with you always." Noah paused in his cleaning, looking out at the Chicago skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. 47 stories below the city pulsed with life traffic streams of red and white light, people rushing home to families, to dinners, to lives that seemed infinitely more important than his own. Up here in the rarefied air of corporate power, decisions were made that affected thousands of lives, millions of dollars, entire communities. And yet the people making those decisions had no idea that their building's security was a joke. "Mr. Hale, you're working late again." Noah turned to see Marcus Rivera, one of the night security guards, approaching with 2 cups of coffee. Marcus was a good man, former military like Noah, though he didn't know about Noah's background. To Marcus, Noah was just another working father trying to make ends meet. "Same as you, Marcus," Noah replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Building doesn't clean itself." "Tell me about it." "Hey, did you hear about tomorrow night's big shindig, some kind of innovation summit? Bigwigs from all over the country coming in. CEO Vale's been running around like a chicken with her head cut off." Noah's expression remained neutral, but his mind sharpened. He had indeed heard about the event, had been hearing about it for weeks as he observed, documented, and quietly investigated. "Sounds fancy. Extra security, I imagine." Marcus snorted. "You'd think so, right? But Vale cut the budget again. Says having too many guards makes the place look unwelcoming. Can you believe that 300 VIPs, millions in art and jewelry walking around, and she wants to save money on security?" This was exactly what Noah had been documenting for the past 6 weeks. As a federal corporate integrity monitor, working undercover for the Department of Homeland Security, his mission was to assess the security vulnerabilities of high-profile corporate targets. Aurora Tower, with its lax protocols and cost-cutting CEO, had caught federal attention after intelligence suggested it might be targeted by a sophisticated criminal organization. What Noah had discovered was worse than anyone had imagined. "Well," Noah said carefully, "I'm sure Ms. Vale knows what she's doing." "Yeah, right." Marcus checked his watch. Speaking of which, I better do my rounds. See you around, Noah. And hey, get some sleep. You look like you haven't slept in days. As Marcus walked away, Noah's reflection caught his eye in the darkened window. Marcus wasn't wrong, he did look tired. The past 6 weeks of maintaining his cover while conducting surveillance had been exhausting. During the day, he was just Noah the janitor, picking up Lily from school, helping with homework, being the only parent she had left. At night, he was Agent Hale documenting security failures and preparing for what his instincts told him was coming. The federal intelligence had been vague, but concerning a sophisticated group known as the Meridian Collective had been targeting high-profile corporate events, kidnapping executives for ransom-stealing proprietary information, and disappearing without a trace. Their method was always the same: infiltrate during large gatherings, when security was spread thin, isolate their targets, and vanish before anyone realized what had happened. Aurora Tower's Innovation Summit was exactly the kind of event they favored. Noah resumed his cleaning, but his trained eyes were actually cataloging. Exit routes, camera blind spots, communication, dead zones, structural weak points. The building's security system was a patchwork of outdated technology and human oversight. The guards were undertrained and overworked. The executive protection protocols were practically non-existent. It was a disaster waiting to happen. His phone buzzed with a text from his handler. "Any updates on tomorrow's event security?" Noah typed back, "Minimal. Target-rich environment. High probability of incident." The response came quickly. "Maintain cover. Observe and report only unless civilian lives are in immediate danger." Noah stared at the message for a long moment, before deleting it. Observe and report only. He understood the necessity of his cover, but if something happened tomorrow night, if innocent people were hurt, because he had to maintain his role as the invisible janitor. "Daddy." Another memory surfaced, Lily asking him why he had to work so many nights, why he couldn't be home to read her bedtime stories like other dads. How could he explain that sometimes protecting people meant sacrificing the things you wanted most? That sometimes being a hero meant being misunderstood, overlooked, forgotten. "Because some jobs are important even when nobody knows you're doing them, sweetheart," he had told her. "Sometimes the most important heroes are the ones nobody sees." Now, as he pushed his cart toward the executive floor, Noah wondered if tomorrow night would test that philosophy. The executive floor of Aurora Tower was a monument to corporate excess. Vivian Vale's corner office occupied nearly a quarter of the space, with its own conference room, private bathroom, and a view that probably cost more per month than Noah's annual salary. Even at 11 p.m. lights were on. Vale was known for her punishing work schedule and her expectation that others match her dedication. Noah had been studying Vivian Vale for weeks, and what he'd learned disturbed him. On the surface, she was the picture of modern corporate success, brilliant, driven, uncompromising. At 38, she had climbed from junior analyst to CEO in less than 15 years, revolutionizing Aurora's cloud computing division and increasing company value by over 400%. But Vale's obsession with profit margins had created dangerous blind spots. 3 security firms had submitted proposals for the Innovation Summit. Vale had chosen the cheapest option, then cut that budget by another 30%. She had refused recommendations for background checks on event staff, declined proposals for metal detection, and overruled her head of security's request for additional personnel. "Perception is reality in our business," she had told her senior staff during a meeting Noah had overheard while cleaning the conference room. "And if we look paranoid, if we surround ourselves with guards and metal detectors, what message does that send to our clients? That we don't trust them. That we're afraid. Fear is not a good look for Aurora." What she didn't understand, what her Harvard MBA and decades of corporate success had failed to teach her, was that sometimes fear was appropriate. Sometimes the things you couldn't see were exactly what you should be afraid of. As Noah emptied wastebaskets and dusted surfaces in the executive area, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. In Vale's outer office, her assistant had left a stack of documents on the desk: visitor badges, parking passes, and catering authorization forms for tomorrow's event. But one sheet didn't belong with the others. It was a floor plan of Aurora Tower marked with red X's at various locations. Security camera positions, guard stations, emergency exits. Someone had been studying the building's defenses, and this document had somehow ended up mixed in with legitimate event paperwork. Noah's training kicked in. He photographed the document with a concealed camera, then carefully noted its exact position before moving on. To anyone watching, he was simply a janitor doing his job. But his mind was racing. The Meridian Collective wasn't just planning to target tomorrow's event, they had already infiltrated it. They had someone on the inside, someone with access to official documents and building security information. Tomorrow night wasn't going to be a random crime of opportunity. It was going to be a carefully orchestrated operation. And Vivian Vale, in her cost-cutting wisdom, had created the perfect conditions for disaster. Noah finished his work on the executive floor and made his way to the service elevator. As the doors closed, he caught his reflection again, just a tired man in a janitor's uniform, invisible to the corporate world above. But behind his eyes was the mind of someone who had spent years in classified operations, someone who had been trained to see patterns, anticipate threats, and act when others couldn't or wouldn't. The elevator descended past floor after floor of darkened offices, each representing millions of dollars in corporate value, thousands of jobs, entire economic ecosystems. Tomorrow night, this building would be filled with innovators, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, the kind of people who shaped the future of American business. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. Noah's phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't his handler. It was a text from Mrs. Patterson, his elderly neighbor who watched Lily when he worked nights. "Lily's asleep. She wanted me to tell you she loves you, and she's proud of her daddy. Sweet dreams, Noah." As he read the message, Noah's throat tightened. Lily was the most important thing in his world, the only thing that truly mattered. She had already lost her mother. She couldn't lose her father too. But if he walked away from tomorrow night, if he maintained his cover and simply observed while people were hurt or killed, how could he look at himself in the mirror? How could he teach his daughter about doing the right thing when he had chosen safety over principle? The elevator reached the parking garage, and Noah stepped out into the harsh fluorescent lighting. His modest Honda Civic sat alone in the corner, looking shabby among the BMWs and Mercedes that belonged to the late-working executives. As he walked toward his car, his footsteps echoing in the concrete space, Noah made a decision that would change everything. Tomorrow night, he wouldn't just be observing. The drive home through Chicago's empty streets gave Noah time to think, to plan, to prepare mentally for what was coming. His apartment in Pilsen was a modest 2-bedroom in a building that had seen better days, but it was home. The walls were covered with Lily's artwork, crayon drawings of princesses and superheroes, school projects about family and friendship, photos of the two of them at Navy Pier and Lincoln Park Zoo. One drawing in particular caught his eye as he hung up his jacket. It showed a tall figure in blue holding a mop standing next to a smaller figure with pigtails. Above them, in Lily's careful 8-year-old handwriting, were the words, "My daddy is a hero." If only she knew how complicated heroism really was. Noah showered and changed into civilian clothes, then sat at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a legal pad. To anyone watching, he might have been paying bills or planning grocery lists. In reality, he was sketching floor plans, noting guard rotations, and developing contingency plans for tomorrow night. The Aurora Tower Innovation Summit would begin at 7 p.m. with a cocktail reception in the main lobby. By 8, guests would move to the 47th floor for presentations and networking. The evening would conclude with dinner on the executive floor, where Vivian Vale would announce Aurora's latest technological breakthroughs. 300 guests, minimal security, multiple blind spots and escape routes. If the Meridian Collective was planning something, the most vulnerable moment would be during the transition between floors, when guests would be spread throughout the building and security would be stretched thin. Noah's phone rang, startling him from his planning. The caller ID showed restricted. "Hello, Agent Hale. This is Director Morrison. We need to talk." Noah tensed. It was unusual for his handler's supervisor to call directly, especially at this hour. "Yes, sir. Our intelligence sources have picked up increased chatter about tomorrow's event. We have reason to believe the Meridian Collective has moved up their timeline. There's a high probability of an incident tomorrow night." "I was afraid of that, sir. I found evidence that they may have someone on the inside. Which is why I'm calling. We're pulling you out. Your cover is too valuable to risk, and we can't have a federal agent compromised if this goes sideways. Report to the field office tomorrow morning for debriefing." Noah stared at Lily's drawing on the refrigerator, the stick figure hero with the mop. "Sir, with respect, these people have no idea what's coming. If we pull out now, if something happens and people get hurt. That's not your concern, Agent Hale. Your mission was intelligence gathering, not protection. Aurora's security failures are documented. If they choose to ignore the risks, that's their decision. But sir, this is not a request, Agent. You have a daughter to think about. Don't let your emotions compromise your judgment." The line went dead, leaving Noah alone with his conscience and his legal pad full of contingency plans. Through his kitchen window, he could see the Aurora Tower's lights in the distance, a glowing monument to corporate ambition and human blindness. His official orders were clear: walk away, file his report, and let whatever happened happen. But as he looked at Lily's drawing again, as he thought about 300 innocent people walking into a trap, as he remembered his wife's last words about protecting the people you love, Noah knew he couldn't follow those orders. Some things were more important than cover stories and federal careers. Some things were worth the risk. Tomorrow night, Noah Hale would have to choose between the agent he was supposed to be and the hero his daughter already believed him to be. The invisible janitor was about to become visible in ways that would shock everyone who thought they knew who he was. The question was whether he would survive long enough to explain himself. Outside his window, Aurora Tower continued to gleam against the Chicago skyline, unaware that in less than 18 hours, its marble floors would become a battlefield, its executive suite would become a crime scene, and its night janitor would become the only thing standing between corporate arrogance and criminal intent. Noah touched the blue bracelet on his wrist and whispered, "Breathe. Tomorrow night, everyone would need to." The morning sun painted Chicago's skyline in shades of gold and amber, but Noah Hale barely noticed as he stood in his kitchen staring at the coffee maker that refused to cooperate. His hands, steady enough to disarm explosives in his previous life, trembled slightly as he tried to focus on the simple task of making breakfast for his daughter. Sleep had been impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw floor plans, escape routes, and the faces of people who had no idea they were walking into danger. At 3 a.m., he had finally given up and spent the remaining hours reviewing everything he knew about the Meridian Collective, their methods, their patterns. "Daddy, you're burning the toast." Lily's voice cut through his mental fog. She stood in the doorway wearing her favorite unicorn pajamas, her dark hair a mess of tangles that reminded him so much of Sarah it made his chest ache. Sorry, sweetheart. Noah quickly removed the smoking bread from the toaster, his mind still racing. How about cereal instead? Are you okay? You look sad. Lily climbed onto her chair at the small kitchen table, her 8-year-old eyes far too perceptive for Noah's comfort. He forced a smile as he poured milk over her Cheerios. Just tired from work. How about you, ready for Mrs. Patterson to pick you up for school? I guess. Can we go to the park this weekend, the one with the big swings? Of course. Noah sat across from her watching as she methodically ate around the pieces of cereal that had gotten too soggy. Such a simple request, such a normal father-daughter conversation. Would they have another one after tonight? Daddy, are you a superhero? The question hit him like a physical blow. What makes you ask that? Tommy at school says his dad is a police officer, and that makes him kind of a superhero. But you're just a janitor, right? You clean buildings. Just a janitor. The words should have stung, but instead they reminded Noah of how well his cover had worked. Even his own daughter saw him as ordinary, invisible, safe. What do you think makes someone a superhero, Lily? She considered this seriously, a trait she had inherited from her mother. Helping people when they're scared. Making bad things stop happening. Having special powers, maybe. And what if someone helped people but nobody knew about it? Would they still be a superhero? I think so. Mom used to say the best helpers don't need everyone to know they're helping. Noah's throat tightened. Sarah had indeed said that, usually when she was volunteering at the hospital or organizing food drives for their neighborhood. She had been the kind of person who made the world better simply by existing in it. Your mom was very smart. She said you were smart too. She said you had important jobs before I was born, but you never talked about them because you were modest. Lily paused a spoonful of cereal halfway to her mouth. What's modest mean? It means not bragging about yourself, not needing everyone to know how special you are. So if you were a superhero, you'd be modest about it. Noah reached across the table and touched the blue bracelet on his wrist. If I were a superhero, I'd want to make sure you were always safe and proud of your daddy. That would be the most important thing. The sound of Mrs. Patterson's horn honking outside saved Noah from having to elaborate on that particular lie. As Lily gathered her backpack and lunchbox, she suddenly turned and hugged him fiercely. I love you, Daddy. Even if you're just a janitor, you're my favorite janitor in the whole world. I love you too, sweetheart, more than all the stars in the sky. He watched from the window as Mrs. Patterson's ancient Buick pulled away from the curb, Lily waving from the back seat, until they disappeared around the corner. Only then did Noah allow himself to feel the full weight of what he was planning to do. His phone rang. Director Morrison again. Agent Hale, I trust you received my message last night clearly. You are not to return to Aurora Tower under any circumstances. Report to the field office immediately for extraction and debriefing. Sir, I need more time to... You need to follow orders. We've had surveillance on the building all night. There's been unusual activity vans arriving personnel moving equipment. Something is definitely planned for tonight. Which is exactly why you need to be out of there. Noah closed his eyes. What about evacuation canceling the event? Aurora's board met this morning. Ms. Vale convinced them that canceling would be seen as weakness, potentially affecting stock prices and client confidence. The event is proceeding as scheduled. So they know there's a threat, and they're doing nothing. They know there might be a threat. There's a difference. Our intelligence isn't definitive enough to force a cancellation, and Aurora's legal team is concerned about liability if they cancel based on unsubstantiated federal concerns. In other words, corporate profits were more important than human lives. Noah had seen this calculation before, in other contexts, other missions. The acceptable risk analysis, that treated people like statistics on a spreadsheet. Agent Hale, you have a distinguished service record. Don't throw it away on a misguided rescue fantasy. Report to the field office. That's an order. The line went dead. Noah stared at his phone for a long moment, then deleted Morrison's contact information and turned the device off entirely. At 8:30 a.m., Noah called in sick to his janitorial supervisor. Food poisoning, he claimed, probably wouldn't be able to work for a day or two. The supervisor, a harried man named Rodriguez, who barely knew Noah's last name, simply marked him down as unavailable and moved on to the next crisis. At 9:15 a.m., Noah drove to a storage unit on the south side of Chicago, a facility he had rented under a false name 6 months ago. Inside, wrapped in plastic and hidden behind boxes of Christmas decorations, was equipment from his previous life. Body armor, communication gear, and a few other items that a federal agent might need when going off the books. At 10:30 a.m., he sat in a diner across from Aurora Tower, drinking bad coffee and watching the building through binoculars disguised as a camera. The Innovation Summit setup was proceeding as scheduled. Catering trucks, audio-visual equipment, security sweeps of the public areas. Everything looked normal, professional, routine. But Noah's trained eye caught details others would miss. The catering van that stayed parked longer than necessary. The maintenance worker who spent too much time studying the lobby layout. The delivery personnel who seemed more interested in security camera positions than in their actual deliveries. The Meridian Collective was already there, hiding in plain sight, among the legitimate workers preparing for tonight's event. At 11:45 a.m., Noah's preparation was interrupted by an unexpected phone call from a number he didn't recognize. Hello. Is this Noah Hale? Who's asking? My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez. I'm a cybersecurity consultant hired for tonight's Aurora Summit. I think we need to talk. Noah's grip tightened on the phone. I'm not sure what you mean. I know who you are, Agent Hale. And I know why you're here. Can we meet? There are things you need to know about tonight that your federal briefings didn't cover. The smart play would be to hang up, assume his cover was blown, and disappear. But something in the woman's voice, urgency mixed with genuine fear, made him hesitate. How do I know you're not working for them? Because if I were working for the Meridian Collective, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd already be dead. 20 minutes later, Noah sat across from Dr. Elena Vasquez in a small cafe near Grant Park. She was younger than he had expected, probably early 30s, with the intense focus of someone who spent her life staring at computer screens and seeing patterns others missed. How did you identify me? Noah asked without preamble. Facial recognition software flagged you 3 weeks ago during a routine security scan of Aurora's employee database. Your janitor background didn't check out too many gaps, too clean references that led nowhere meaningful. I've been watching you watch the building. And you haven't reported this because I've been conducting my own investigation into Aurora's security, and what I've found scares the hell out of me. Elena pulled out a tablet and showed Noah a series of network intrusion logs. Someone has been systematically mapping Aurora's entire digital infrastructure for months. Not just the usual corporate espionage stuff they've accessed, employee records, building schematics, even personal information about tonight's guest list. Noah studied the data. It confirmed his worst fears. The Meridian Collective. You know about them. Enough to know that tonight is going to be a disaster unless we can stop it. Elena leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. There's more. They didn't just hack Aurora's systems, they've been manipulating them, disabling security protocols, creating false maintenance records, even altering the guest list. 3 people on tonight's attendance roster don't exist. Their background checks were fabricated, inserted directly into Aurora's database. meaning they've got people inside the event. At least 3 that I can identify, probably more. And here's the thing that really worries me: they've been studying the building's emergency systems. Fire suppression, evacuation protocols, communication networks. They're not just planning a robbery or kidnapping. They're planning something that requires controlling the entire building. Noah felt ice forming in his stomach. What kind of something? Best case scenario, mass kidnapping of high-value targets for ransom. Worst case? Elena's hands trembled slightly as she turned off her tablet. Aurora's cloud servers contain classified government contracts, personal data on millions of Americans' financial records for Fortune 500 companies. If someone wanted to hold the entire American economy hostage, Aurora's data would be a pretty good starting point. The implications hit Noah like a freight train. This wasn't just about the people attending tonight's summit. This was about national security, economic stability, the kind of attack that could ripple through every aspect of American life. Why come to me? Why not report this through official channels? I tried. Aurora's board brushed me off as paranoid. The FBI Cybercrime Division said my evidence was inconclusive. Homeland Security referred me back to corporate security. Elena's laugh was bitter. Everyone thinks I'm seeing threats that don't exist. Meanwhile, I'm watching our entire digital infrastructure being laid bare for attack. So what do you want from me? I want to help you stop them. You're planning something for tonight, aren't you? You wouldn't still be here watching the building if you were just going to walk away. Noah studied Elena's face, looking for tell signs of deception. But all he saw was the same frustrated determination he felt himself, the recognition that sometimes doing the right thing meant ignoring the people who were supposed to be on your sittis tamand. If I were planning something hypothetically, what kind of help could you propose? Access. Real-time intelligence. The ability to see what they're doing inside Aurora's systems as they're doing it. Elena pulled a small device from her pocket. This is a hardened communication unit. Military-grade encryption, impossible to jam or trace. If you're going to be inside that building tonight, you'll need eyes and ears you can trust. Noah looked at the device, sleek, professional, exactly the kind of equipment a cybersecurity consultant might legitimately possess. And what do you get out of this? The chance to sleep at night, knowing I did everything I could to prevent what's coming. Look, Agent Hale, I've spent the last 5 years watching our digital infrastructure become more vulnerable, more connected, more dependent on systems that can be compromised. What's going to happen tonight isn't just an attack on Aurora, it's a preview of the future. If we can't stop this, if we can't prove that these threats are real and immediate, then we're all living on borrowed time. Noah touched the blue bracelet on his wrist, thinking of Lily of the world she was going to inherit. A world where invisible threats could destroy everything people held dear, where the monsters weren't dramatic villains but ordinary-looking people with laptops and patience. I'll take the communicator, he said finally. But understand something, if this goes wrong, if people get hurt, I can't protect you from the consequences. I'm not asking you to protect me. I'm asking you to let me help you protect them. As they parted ways outside the cafe, Elena grabbed Noah's arm. There's one more thing. The leader of this operation, the Meridian Collective, calls him the architect. He's not just some criminal mastermind. He's someone with inside knowledge of federal security protocols, someone who knows how agencies like yours operate. Meaning he might know exactly who you are and what you're capable of. Tonight might not just be a trap for Aurora's guests. It might be a trap for you. Noah drove back toward his apartment, Elena's words echoing in his mind. A trap, with innocent people caught in the middle, and his own daughter waiting at home for a father who might not survive the night. At 2 p.m. he picked up Lily from school, forcing himself to smile and ask about her day while his mind calculated distances, timing contingencies. She chattered about art class and playground drama, blissfully unaware that her father was preparing for what might be their last afternoon together. At 4 p.m., as Lily settled in front of the television with homework and a snack, Noah sat at his kitchen table and wrote a letter he hoped she would never need to read. He sealed it in an envelope marked "For Lily from Daddy" and placed it in his bedroom dresser, hidden behind a photo of Sarah. At 5 p.m., Mrs. Patterson arrived for another evening of babysitting, commenting on how nice it was that Noah was working so many extra hours to provide for his family. Noah simply nodded and kissed Lily goodbye, holding her a moment longer than usual. "Don't forget to breathe, Daddy," she said, touching his bracelet. "Mommy always said that when you breathe right, everything else follows." "I'll remember, sweetheart. I love you." "Love you too. See you in the morning." If only it were that simple. At 6 p.m., Noah parked his Honda 3 blocks from Aurora Tower and began the transformation from father to agent. The body armor went on first, hidden beneath his janitor's uniform. The communication device Elena had given him had clipped discreetly to his collar. In his utility cart beneath the cleaning supplies were items that would help him level the playing field if everything went wrong. At 6:30 p.m., he entered Aurora Tower through the service entrance, just another invisible worker preparing for another night of cleaning up after the important people. The lobby was already buzzing with activity, early arrivals for the Innovation Summit caterers making final preparations, security guards looking bored and underpaid. Noah moved through this building with practiced efficiency, but his eyes were cataloging everything. Guest arrivals, security positions, unusual faces among the staff. Elena's intelligence had been accurate. He spotted at least 2 people who didn't belong. Individuals whose movements suggested surveillance training rather than catering experience. At 6:45 p.m., his earpiece crackled to life. "Noah, this is Elena. I'm monitoring from my apartment. The network intrusions have increased dramatically in the last hour. They're not just watching anymore, they're actively manipulating building systems. Any indication of timeline? Based on the pattern of access, I'd estimate they'll make their move during the transition to the 47th floor. Maximum confusion security spread thin, guests scattered throughout the building." Noah checked his watch. That gave him maybe 90 minutes to position himself and prepare for whatever was coming. At 7 p.m., the Innovation Summit officially began. Noah watched from the mezzanine level as 300 of America's most successful business leaders gathered in Aurora's marble lobby, champagne glasses reflecting the crystal chandelier light, conversations buzzing with the energy of people who believed they were reshaping the world. None of them had any idea that they were actually sheep gathering for slaughter. Among the crowd, Noah spotted Vivian Vale holding court near the registration table, her silk dress and diamond jewelry probably worth more than most people made in a year. She was animated, confident, completely oblivious to the fact that her cost-cutting measures had created the perfect storm for disaster. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vale's voice carried across the lobby as she took the microphone. "Welcome to Aurora Tower and our annual Innovation Summit. Tonight, we celebrate not just technological advancement, but the courage to envision a future where anything is possible." The irony was almost too bitter to bear. Vision, courage, possibility, all of it built on a foundation of corporate arrogance and willful blindness. At 7:15 p.m., Noah began moving through the crowd, his janitorial cart providing perfect cover for close observation. The 3 individuals Elena had identified were indeed present: 2 men in expensive suits who carried themselves like former military, and a woman in catering uniform who spent too much time studying exit routes instead of serving hors d'oeuvres. At 7:30 p.m., his earpiece buzzed again. "Noah, I'm seeing massive data transfers from Aurora's servers. They're not just accessing information, they're copying everything. Financial records, government contracts, personal data on every guest in that building. Can you stop it? I'm trying, but they've locked me out of most systems. Whatever they're planning, they want insurance. If anyone tries to stop them, they can threaten to release everything they've stolen. Noah felt his jaw clench. The Meridian Collective wasn't just planning a physical attack, they were preparing digital warfare, the kind that could destroy lives and topple governments with the click of a button. At 7:45 p.m., Vivian Vale announced the transition to the 47th floor for the evening's main presentations. As 300 guests began moving toward the elevators, Noah positioned himself near the service stairs, his hand resting on the concealed weapon beneath his cleaning supplies. The trap was about to spring, and somewhere in this crowd of unsuspecting victims were the predators who had been planning this moment for months. Noah touched his daughter's bracelet one more time and whispered, "Breathe." In 15 minutes, everyone would need to. The elevator chimes echoed through Aurora Tower's marble lobby, like funeral bells, each melodic note marking another group of unsuspecting guests ascending toward what Noah now recognized as a carefully orchestrated killing field. He watched from his position near the service corridor as the last stragglers moved toward the banks of elevators, their animated conversations about market disruption and technological innovation creating a surreal backdrop to the approaching nightmare. His earpiece crackled with Elena's increasingly urgent voice. "Noah, the building's communication systems are being systematically compromised. They're creating isolated zones, areas where cell phones won't work, where security can't coordinate. Whatever's about to happen, they want to control the flow of information." Noah adjusted his grip on the mop handle, feeling the weighted metal beneath the innocuous cotton strands. "How long until they make their move? Based on the network activity, I'd say 10 minutes, maybe less. They're waiting for the bulk of the guests to reach the 47th floor before they lock everything down." Through the lobby's floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago's evening skyline glittered with promise, each light representing lives, families, dreams that had no idea how close they were to being shattered. Noah thought of Lily probably finishing her homework under Mrs. Patterson's watchful eye, trusting that her daddy would come home safe from his simple job cleaning office buildings. The irony cut deep. His daughter's innocent faith in his safety was about to be tested by the very skills that made him dangerous. "Sir, you're not supposed to be here during guest events." Noah turned to find Marcus Rivera approaching, his security uniform crisp, but his expression concerned. The guard's hand rested casually on his radio, ready to call for backup if needed. "Just finishing up the executive level, Marcus. Ms. Vale wanted everything perfect for tonight." Noah gestured toward his cart loaded with the tools of his supposed trade. "You know how she gets about details." Marcus relaxed slightly, recognizing the shared frustration of workers dealing with demanding bosses. "Tell me about it." "She had me reposition the metal detectors 3 times because they disrupted the aesthetic flow of the lobby. As if terrorists care about interior design." Speaking of which, everything seemed normal tonight, no unusual activity. Define normal. Marcus glanced around the emptying lobby, his voice dropping. "I've got a bad feeling about this whole thing, Noah. Too many moving parts. Too many people I don't recognize. The catering staff changed at the last minute. The audiovisual crew brought in extra equipment that security wasn't briefed on, and don't get me started on the VIP protection specialists that showed up without proper credentials." Noah's blood chilled. VIP protection. 3 guys in expensive suits claiming their private security for some of the bigger names attending tonight. Problem is, their names aren't on any of our approved vendor lists, and when I tried to verify their credentials, the phone numbers led to disconnected voicemails. The 3 operatives Elena had identified weren't just observers. They were positioning themselves as legitimate security, giving them access to restricted areas and the ability to move freely without suspicion. It was elegant, professional, and terrifying in its simplicity. Where are they now? Last I saw, they were heading up to the 47th floor with the advanced security sweep. Said they needed to check sight lines and escape routes for their principals. Marcus shook his head. I tried to assign one of our guys to shadow them, but we're spread so thin tonight that the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in immediately, bathing the lobby in an eerie red glow that transformed the elegant space into something from a nightmare. Noah's training took over instantly, his hand moving to the concealed weapon in his cart, while his eyes swept the suddenly transformed environment. What the hell? Marcus fumbled for his radio. Control, this is Rivera in the lobby. We've got a power failure. Request immediate. Static filled the airwaves. Control, do you copy? Elena's voice crackled through Noah's earpiece, barely audible over the electronic interference. Noah, they've taken control of the building's power grid and communication systems. All elevators are locked down, cell towers are being jammed, and they've isolated the fire stairs. The guests on the 47th floor are trapped. Noah grabbed Marcus by the shoulder. We need to get to the emergency command center. Now. Who are you? Marcus's hand moved toward his weapon. Survival instincts finally overriding his casual trust. Someone who might be able to save lives tonight. But I need you to trust me, and I need you to move fast. Before Marcus could respond, the sound of shattering glass echoed from the street-level entrance. 3 figures in tactical gear were cutting through the supposedly secure lobby doors with military precision, their movements coordinated and purposeful. The building's vaunted security system hadn't even delayed them. Oh, Jesus. Marcus's voice cracked as he reached for his radio again. All units, we have hostile breach in the main lobby. Repeat, we have... One of the intruders raised a device that looked like a modified cell phone. A high-pitched whine filled the air, and Marcus's radio died completely, along with every electronic device in the lobby. Emergency lighting flickered and stabilized, but Noah could see that they were now operating on backup power only. EMP burst, Noah whispered, recognizing the technology from his federal training. They've just fried every piece of communication equipment in a 2-block radius. The lead intruder removed his tactical helmet, revealing a face that Noah recognized from classified briefings. Viktor Kozlov, former Spetsnaz operative, and the suspected field commander for several Meridian Collective operations. His cold eyes swept the lobby until they locked onto Noah and Marcus. Gentlemen, Kozlov's accent carried the precise diction of someone who had learned English in military schools. You will please remain very still while my associates secure this floor. Marcus's hand trembled as he reached for his sidearm, but Noah caught his wrist before he could draw the weapon. Against 3 professional killers with military-grade equipment, Marcus's security training would only get him killed quickly. Easy, Noah murmured. Let them think we're just scared civilians. Kozlov approached with the confident stride of someone who had done this many times before. His tactical gear was top of the line, his weapon positioned for immediate use. His eyes constantly scanning for threats. This wasn't some desperate criminal, this was a professional soldier conducting a military operation. You, Kozlov pointed at Marcus. Security personnel, yes. You will provide access codes for the building's emergency systems. I don't have those codes, Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the obvious fear in his eyes. Only the head of security and building management have that level of access. Unfortunate. Then you are unnecessary. Kozlov's hand moved toward his sidearm with casual efficiency, but Noah acted first. The mop handle came up in a perfect arc, striking Kozlov's weapon hand, while Noah's other hand grabbed the cleaning cart's edge and spun it into the legs of the nearest operative. Industrial-grade floor wax and cleaning chemicals exploded across the marble floor, creating an instant slick, that sent two of the intruders sliding into the lobby's decorative planters. "Move!" Noah shouted to Marcus, who stood frozen in shock at the sudden violence. Training kicked in as Noah rolled behind the registration desk, pulling Marcus with him just as automatic weapons fire began chewing chunks out of the marble facade. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, each bullet impact sending stone fragments flying like shrapnel. Who are you?" Marcus gasped, pressing himself against the temporary cover. "Someone who used to do this for a living." Noah's mind was racing, calculating angles, distance, ammunition capacity. "How many rounds do you carry?" 15 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. "But Noah, these guys have full auto weapons and body armor. We can't fight them." "We don't have to fight them. We just have to survive long enough to get help to the people upstairs." Elena's voice crackled through his earpiece, barely audible over the gunfire. "Noah, the situation is worse than we thought. They've got hostages on the 47th floor, and they're demanding access to Aurora's main servers. But that's not the real target." "What do you mean?" "The server room is just a distraction. While everyone focuses on the data theft, they're planning to eliminate the witnesses. All of them. The chemical analysis I'm seeing suggests they've introduced something into the building's air circulation system." Noah felt ice form in his stomach. "What kind of chemical?" "I'm not sure yet, but the concentration levels are rising rapidly on the upper floors. Noah, if you don't stop this soon, everyone in that building is going to die." Mass murder disguised as corporate espionage. The Meridian Collective wasn't just stealing data, they were planning to eliminate every witness to their operation, every person who could identify them, every potential threat to their future operations. 300 of America's most influential business leaders would simply disappear, and the economic chaos that followed would provide perfect cover for whatever larger operation they were really planning. The gunfire stopped abruptly, replaced by Kozlov's voice echoing through the lobby. "Gentlemen, you have shown admirable courage, but this is pointless resistance. My associates have already secured the upper floors. Your choice now is simple surrender and live, or continue this foolishness and die with everyone else." Noah caught Marcus's eye and made a series of hand signals, military communication, that the security guard wouldn't understand, but that might confuse any observers about Noah's true identity. Then he called out, "What do you want?" "Access to Aurora's executive systems, specifically the authentication codes for their government contracts database. Provide this, and we will leave quietly. Refuse, and the consequences will be comprehensive." Noah knew this was a lie. Even if they provided the codes, the Meridian Collective couldn't afford to leave witnesses. But the demand revealed something important: they needed someone with legitimate access to complete their operation. The data theft wasn't automated. It required human authorization at the highest levels. "The codes are biometric locked," Noah shouted back. "You need Vivian Vale's personal authorization. Ms. Vale is currently indisposed, but we have alternative methods of obtaining her cooperation. The question is whether you will make this process easy or difficult." Marcus looked at Noah with growing understanding and horror. "They're torturing her, aren't they? They're going to torture the CEO until she gives them what they want." "Probably. Unless we can get to her first." "How?" "The elevators are locked down, the stairs are blocked, and we're pinned down by 3 professional killers with enough firepower to level a city block." Noah smiled grimly, touching the blue bracelet on his wrist. Sometimes the most important tools were the ones nobody noticed. "Marcus, I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that?" "Do I have a choice?" "Not really. When I give the signal, I want you to run toward the service corridor and don't look back. Can you find the manual override for the fire suppression system?" "Yes, but why would we?" Understanding dawned in Marcus's eyes. "The chemical fog. You want to wash it out of the air circulation. Exactly. But I also want to create a distraction that will give us a fighting chance. Noah reached into his cleaning cart and retrieved items that Marcus was beginning to realize weren't standard janitorial supplies. Industrial-grade drain cleaner, concentrated ammonia rubber gloves, and what looked suspiciously like a military-issue flashbang grenade disguised as a can of air freshener. Jesus Christ, Noah. Who are you really? Right now, I'm the only thing standing between those people upstairs and a very bad ending to their evening. Noah's voice carried the quiet authority of someone who had faced death before and survived. On my mark, you run for that corridor and activate every fire suppression system in the building. Full saturation, every floor, maximum pressure. What about you? I'm going to buy you the time you need. Before Marcus could protest further, Noah stood up from behind the registration desk and lobbed the disguised grenade toward the main entrance. The explosion that followed wasn't just sound and light. It was psychological warfare, designed to disorient and confuse professional soldiers who thought they were in complete control. In the seconds of chaos that followed, Noah moved with the fluid precision of someone who had trained for exactly this kind of situation. The drain cleaner and ammonia combined into a caustic cloud that sent the intruders scrambling for gas masks, while Noah rolled across the slippery marble floor toward a position that would give him clear sight lines to the service corridor. "Go!" he shouted to Marcus, who sprinted toward his objective with the desperate speed of someone who finally understood the stakes. Kozlov recovered faster than Noah had hoped, his military training overcoming the temporary disorientation. "Enough games!" the Russian snarled, raising his weapon toward the fleeing security guard. Noah's mop handle struck Kozlov's rifle barrel just as the weapon fired, sending bullets harmlessly into the ceiling, but also revealing Noah's position to the other operatives. Return fire came immediately, forcing him to dive behind a marble pillar that absorbed the impact with ominous cracking sounds. "Professional technique," Kozlov observed, his voice carrying grudging respect. "Military training, excellent reflexes, knowledge of improvised weapons. You are not the janitor you pretend to be." "Just someone who doesn't like bullies," Noah called back, checking his limited ammunition supply. He had perhaps 30 seconds before they flanked his position and ended this permanently. Federal agent, perhaps FBI, DEA, or something more. Specialized. The sound of fire suppression systems activating throughout the building provided blessed cover for Noah's movement. Water began cascading from ceiling sprinklers, while foam and inert gas flooded the air circulation systems. Whatever chemical agent the Meridian Collective had introduced would be diluted or neutralized within minutes. But Noah's small victory was interrupted by a new voice crackling through Kozlov's radio, someone speaking in rapid Russian from the upper floors. Kozlov's response was sharp, urgent, angry. Then he switched back to English. "It seems your friend has created complications for our timeline. No matter. We adapt." "What's happening?" Elena's voice was barely audible through the electronic interference and cascading water. "The fire suppression is working," Noah replied quietly. "Whatever they put in the air is being washed out. But I think they're accelerating their plan." "That's not good news. I'm seeing massive data deletions from Aurora's servers. They're not just stealing information anymore, they're destroying it. If this continues, Aurora's entire corporate database will be wiped clean. Economic warfare on a scale that would ripple through the entire American business sector." The Meridian Collective wasn't just eliminating witnesses, they were destroying the infrastructure that connected hundreds of companies to government contracts, financial networks, and international partnerships. "Time to go, janitor." Kozlov's voice had taken on a new urgency. "My associates upstairs require immediate extraction, which means this floor must be cleared of all personnel." The meaning was clear, They were going to kill everyone in the lobby and move to a backup plan that didn't require subtlety or witnesses. Noah touched his daughter's bracelet one more time, thinking of Lily's simple faith in her father's ability to come home safe. She had drawn him as a hero with a mop, never knowing how prophetic that image would become. "Marcus," he called toward the service corridor. "How long until full saturation?" 2 minutes for complete system activation, came the reply. "But Noah, I'm seeing movement on the security monitors. They've got people coming down from the upper floors. This isn't over." Of course it wasn't over. The Meridian Collective had planned for contingencies, backup operations, multiple escape routes. Even if Noah could neutralize the 3 operatives in the lobby, there were others scattered throughout the building, others who would complete the mission regardless of setbacks. But sometimes stopping a disaster didn't require defeating every enemy. Sometimes it just required disrupting their timeline enough to give innocent people a chance to survive. Noah's earpiece crackled with Elena's voice now carrying an edge of desperate excitement. "Noah, I've broken through part of their network isolation. I can restore limited communication to the upper floors, but only for a few minutes before they lock me out again. Do it, and send a message to every phone, every computer, every device you can reach. Tell them to get to the stairwells. Tell them to move to the roof. Tell them help is coming." "What help? You told me the feds pulled you out. There's no cavalry coming." Noah smiled grimly as he prepared for what he knew would be the most important 30 seconds of his life. There's always cavalry. Sometimes it just wears a janitor's uniform. The water from the fire suppression system had turned the marble lobby into a treacherous ice rink, but it had also washed away the chemical fog and created the kind of chaotic environment where a single determined individual could level the playing field against superior numbers. Noah emerged from behind the pillar, moving like liquid death, his every step calculated for maximum impact and minimum exposure. The mop handle became a staff weapon, striking pressure points and weapon hands with surgical precision. The remaining cleaning chemicals became improvised smoke screens and caustic barriers. Even his janitor's cart became a battering ram, its industrial wheels and weighted base turning it into a mobile fortress. Kozlov's first shot went wide as his feet slipped on the shot marble. His second shot was deflected by a bucket that Noah threw with the accuracy of someone who had trained with every conceivable improvised weapon. By the time the Russian could line up a third shot, Noah was inside his effective range, and the fight became personal. "You fight like Spetsnaz," Kozlov grunted as Noah's mop handle caught him across the ribs. "But you are too old, too slow, too sentimental to win this." "Maybe," Noah replied, using the Russian's own momentum to send him sliding across the flooded floor. "But I don't have to win. I just have to last long enough." The other 2 operatives were down, one unconscious from a collision with the registration desk, the other temporarily blinded by industrial-strength ammonia. But Kozlov was the real threat, the professional soldier who had planned this operation and who would adapt to any setback. Last long enough for what? Kozlov's weapon came up again, this time with deadly accuracy. Noah's answer came in the form of sirens, distant at first, then growing louder as Chicago Police Department vehicles converged on Aurora Tower from every direction. Elena had managed to break through the communication blackout long enough to send an automated distress signal to every emergency service in the city. "For the cavalry," Noah said quietly. Kozlov's eyes widened as he realized that his carefully orchestrated operation was unraveling. The timeline was blown, the stealth approach was compromised, and now he had to choose between completing the mission and escaping to fight another day. He chose escape, but not before firing one last shot that caught Noah in the shoulder and sent him spinning into the marble wall with bone-jarring impact. As consciousness faded, Noah heard Elena's voice through his earpiece, distant and concerned. NOAA emergency services are en route. The chemical threat has been neutralized, and most of the hostages are safe. You did it. Most of the hostages, not all. Which meant the nightmare wasn't over yet. Through the lobby's shattered windows, Noah could see flashing lights painting the Chicago skyline in red and blue. Police ambulances, fire trucks, the full response to what would soon be called one of the most sophisticated terrorist attacks on American soil. But somewhere in the building above the architect was still operating, still pulling strings, still orchestrating a finale that would make everything Noah had accomplished meaningless. The janitor's mop lay beside him on the flooded marble floor, its cotton strands stained with chemicals and determination. In a few hours, the world would know the story of the invisible man who had saved Aurora Tower. But first, Noah had to survive long enough to finish what he had started. The building's emergency lighting flickered ominously as backup power systems struggled with the massive draw from the fire suppression systems. Somewhere above 300 people were discovering that their elegant corporate summit had become a fight for survival. And in the flooded lobby of Aurora Tower, a wounded janitor touched his daughter's bracelet and whispered, "Breathe." The hardest part was still coming. The pain in Noah's shoulder felt like liquid fire, but adrenaline and years of conditioning kept him moving. As sirens wailed outside Aurora Tower, and emergency lights cast dancing shadows across the flooded marble floor, he pressed himself against the wall and tried to assess the damage. The bullet had passed through muscle without hitting bone, painful but not immediately life-threatening. Marcus appeared at his side, the security guard's face pale with shock and newfound respect. "Jesus, Noah, you're bleeding bad. We need to get you medical attention." "No time." Noah struggled to his feet, using the wall for support. "How many hostages are still upstairs?" "I don't know. The monitors went dark when they hit us with that EMP thing. But the automated head count from the elevator logs showed about 250 people made it to the 47th floor before lockdown." Elena's voice crackled through his earpiece, clearer now that emergency responders were restoring communication networks. "Noah, I've got partial surveillance back online. The situation upstairs is worse than we thought. They're not just holding hostages, they're sorting them." "Sorting them how?" "High-value targets in one group, everyone else in another. Government contractors, defense industry executives, anyone with access to classified information. They're planning something specific for that group." Noah felt ice forming in his gut, despite the fire in his shoulder. The Meridian Collective wasn't just conducting corporate espionage. They were harvesting human intelligence assets, people whose knowledge and access could be exploited for years to come. How many in the high-value group? 43, including Vivian Vale. Noah, if they extract those people, the damage to national security could be catastrophic. We're talking about individuals with clearance levels that span defense energy, telecommunications, financial infrastructure. Through the lobby's shattered windows, Noah could see the first wave of emergency responders taking positions around the building. Chicago PD's tactical team was good, but they were preparing for a conventional hostage situation. They had no idea they were facing military-trained operatives with sophisticated equipment and a plan that had been months in the making. "Marcus, I need you to get down there and brief the incident commander. Tell them this isn't random terrorism. It's a coordinated intelligence operation by foreign assets. They need to treat this as an act of war, not a criminal incident." "What about you? You can't go back up there alone, wounded against professional killers." Noah managed a grim smile as he retrieved his mop from the flooded floor. The humble cleaning tool had become a symbol of something larger. The power of being underestimated. The strength that came from protecting something more important than yourself. "I'm not going back up there as Noah Hale, federal agent. I'm going up there as a janitor who knows this building better than anyone alive." The service stairwell was a maze of pipes, electrical conduits, and emergency equipment that most people never noticed. But Noah had spent 6 weeks memorizing every inch of Aurora Tower's infrastructure, every maintenance access point, every weakness in the building's security design. More importantly, he understood something that the Meridian Collective's careful planning had missed in any large building. The invisible workers knew secrets that even the architects had forgotten. Elena, can you access the building's original construction blueprints? Already on it. What are you looking for? There was a modification made to the 47th floor during construction. A private elevator that connects directly to Vivian Vale's executive office installed so she could move between meetings without being seen by employees or competitors. I see it on the schematics. But Noah, the access point is on the 46th floor, and the elevator itself would show up on their surveillance. Not if it's been deactivated for maintenance. Marcus, did Vale's assistant mention anything about executive elevator repairs this week? Marcus's voice came through the radio connection Elena had established. Yeah, actually. Some kind of motor replacement scheduled for tonight after the event. The elevator's been offline since Tuesday. Perfect. The Meridian Collective would have planned around the building's active systems, but they wouldn't have anticipated a maintenance shutdown that was scheduled after their intelligence gathering was complete. Noah began climbing the service stairs, his wounded shoulder protesting every movement, but his mind calculating distances, timing approach angles. 46 floors of industrial stairwell stretched above him, each level bringing him closer to a confrontation that would determine whether America's business elite lived to see another dawn. Noah, I'm getting reports from the emergency responders outside. They're seeing movement on the roof. Looks like the Meridian Collective is preparing an extraction point. Helicopter, most likely. But here's the thing, Chicago airspace is controlled especially around downtown. They'd need clearance to operate, which means they either have someone inside air traffic control or they're planning to extract during the chaos of the emergency response. Noah paused on the 20th floor, landing his breathing heavy but controlled. The tactical situation was becoming clearer. This wasn't just a hostage scenario or a data theft operation. The Meridian Collective was conducting a strategic extraction of human assets under cover of terrorism, using America's own emergency response protocols to facilitate their escape. How long until their extraction window? Based on typical emergency response timelines and the helicopter traffic I'm monitoring, maybe 20 minutes before Chicago PD's aviation unit can establish a no-fly perimeter. 20 minutes to climb 26 floors, neutralize an unknown number of operatives, and prevent the kidnapping of 43 high-value targets. Even at full strength, it would have been a nearly impossible task. Wounded and operating alone, it was essentially suicide. But Noah thought of Lily's drawing on his refrigerator, the stick figure hero with the mop, and kept climbing. On the 32nd floor, his earpiece crackled with a new voice. Male, calm speaking, with the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Federal Agent Noah Hale, I presume. Or do you prefer janitor? Noah stopped climbing, his blood turning to ice. Who is this? Someone who has been watching your career with great interest. Your service record is quite impressive. Special Operations, Defense Intelligence, several classified missions that remain redacted even in federal databases. You have a remarkable talent for violence disguised as heroism. The architect. Noah was certain of it. The voice carried the cultured precision of someone educated in American universities, but trained in foreign intelligence services. What do you want? To offer you a choice. Your daughter Lily is currently safe in your apartment with an elderly babysitter named Mrs. Patterson. They are watching a Disney movie and sharing microwave popcorn. Such a peaceful domestic scene. Noah's grip tightened on the stair railing, his wounded shoulder forgotten in the face of pure rage. If you touch her, nothing will happen to her as long as you cease this pointless heroism and allow our operation to conclude. You have already done enough damage to our timeline. Further interference will force us to expand our target list beyond corporate executives. The threat was clear, professional, and completely credible. The Meridian Collective had researched Noah thoroughly enough to know exactly which pressure points would stop him cold. Elena, Noah whispered, hoping his communication was still secure. I need you to contact Chicago PD immediately. Send units to my apartment for welfare check on a minor child. Already done. Elena's voice was tight with controlled fury. But Noah police response time to residential areas during a major incident like this. It could be 15 to 20 minutes. More than enough time for the architect to make good on his threat if Noah continued his assault on the building. Agent Hale, the cultured voice continued. I understand your dilemma. Duty versus family, the greater good versus personal love. It is the classic moral trap that has destroyed many good men. But consider this, if you allow our operation to succeed, your daughter grows up with a living father. If you continue, she grows up an orphan, and we still achieve our objectives through alternative methods. Noah closed his eyes, touching the blue bracelet on his wrist. Lily's innocent voice echoed in his memory. When you feel scared or angry, just touch it and breathe, Daddy. Mommy always said that when you breathe right, everything else follows. Sarah's wisdom filtered through their daughter's pure heart. Sometimes the right choice wasn't about tactics or strategy, it was about trust. Counteroffer, Noah said quietly. I'm listening. You let those people go and I'll walk away. Simple exchange. The architect's laugh was genuinely amused. You would trust the word of a terrorist to honor such an agreement? No. But I trust you to honor your own self-interest. You need those 43 people alive and cooperative to be useful. Dead martyrs are worthless. Traumatized hostages who hate their captors are liability risks. But if you let the others go, if you show mercy to innocent people, those 43 might be more willing to believe they can survive this by cooperating. A long pause. When the architect spoke again, his tone carried grudging respect. You understand human psychology quite well, Agent Hale. Very well. I will release the non-essential personnel as a gesture of good faith, but understand that your daughter's safety depends entirely on your maintaining this new spirit of cooperation. Through his earpiece, Noah heard Elena's sharp intake of breath. Noah, don't trust him. These people don't honor agreements, they exploit weakness. But Noah was already moving not down toward safety, but up toward the 47th floor. Because the architect had made one crucial mistake in his psychological warfare, he had revealed that he didn't understand Noah Hale at all. The choice between duty and family wasn't a trap, it was clarity. Noah's duty was to his family, which meant ensuring that Lily grew up in a world where monsters like the architect couldn't threaten children to manipulate their parents. Elena, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Record everything that happens in the next 10 minutes. Whatever the outcome, people need to know what really happened here tonight. Noah, what are you planning? He didn't answer, partly because he wasn't entirely sure himself, but mostly because some plans were better executed than explained. The 39th floor service access brought him to the abandoned executive elevator shaft. The car itself was locked at ground level for maintenance, but the shaft provided a direct route to the 47th floor that wouldn't show up on any surveillance system the Meridian Collective might have compromised. Noah had rappelled down elevator shafts in foreign capitals, climbed through ventilation systems in terrorist strongholds, and infiltrated secure facilities using methods that would never appear in any training manual. But this was different. This was personal in a way that made his hands steadier, his mind clearer, his purpose absolute. The elevator cables provided handholds as he climbed through the darkness, his wounded shoulder screaming with each movement, but his will stronger than the pain. Below him, Chicago's emergency responders were probably finalizing their assault plans, unaware that their tactical response was exactly what the architect had anticipated and planned around. Above him, 43 of America's most influential business leaders were learning that wealth and success provided no protection against determined enemies who understood that information was more valuable than money. And somewhere in the city, his 8-year-old daughter was trusting that her daddy would come home safe from his simple job, cleaning office buildings. The elevator shaft ended at a maintenance access panel that opened into a supply closet on the 47th floor. Noah listened carefully before opening the panel, hearing voices, footsteps, the controlled chaos of a complex operation being executed by professionals. "Status report," a voice said in accented English. "Data extraction is 90% complete. Financial records, government contracts, personal information on every major defense contractor in the country. Once we have full access to Ms. Vale's biometric locks, we can download the classified project files. And the packages, sorted and prepared for transport. 43 high-value assets sedated and ready for extraction. The helicopter will be here in 12 minutes. Excellent. Begin final preparations. And remember, no witnesses among the remaining personnel." Noah's blood chilled. The architect had lied about releasing the non-essential hostages. He was planning to eliminate everyone who couldn't be used as a long-term asset, leaving no witnesses to testify about what had really happened at Aurora Tower. Through the supply closet's keyhole, Noah could see a portion of the 47th floor's main conference area. Bodies lay motionless on the floor, not dead, but unconscious from some kind of chemical agent. The high-value packages were being loaded onto gurneys and moved toward what was probably a service elevator leading to the roof. 3 armed operatives were visible, plus at least 2 others Noah could hear but not see. All professional, all alert, all positioned to respond to any threat from the building's conventional access points. None of them were watching the supply closet. Noah's phone vibrated with a text message from Elena. "Police tactical team is moving into position. They'll breach in 8 minutes. Whatever you're planning now would be good." 8 minutes was an eternity in a tactical situation, but it was also the window Noah needed to try something that had a microscopic chance of success and a massive chance of getting him killed. He opened the supply closet door and stepped into the hallway, pushing a maintenance cart loaded with cleaning supplies and looking exactly like what he was supposed to be, an invisible janitor doing his job during a crisis. "Hey!" one of the operatives called out in Russian-accented English. "You are not supposed to be here." Noah looked up with the expression of a confused working man who had stumbled into something beyond his understanding. "Sorry, sir. Just trying to finish my rounds before I go home. My little girl's waiting for me." The operative relaxed slightly, seeing exactly what Noah wanted him to see, a harmless civilian who posed no threat to their operation. "Building is closed tonight. You go home now." "Yes, sir. Just let me empty these last few trash cans and I'll be out of your way." As Noah moved his cart between the unconscious hostages, he was actually conducting a rapid assessment of the tactical situation. 5 operatives total positioned to cover the main access points, but not expecting threats from inside their secure perimeter. Civilian casualties already neutralized with non-lethal agents. The high-value targets being prepared for extraction on the roof. And somewhere in this maze of unconscious bodies and armed professionals was Vivian Vale, the key to Aurora's most sensitive data and the architect's primary objective. "Elena," Noah whispered into his concealed microphone. "I need you to trigger every fire alarm on this floor. Create as much noise and confusion as possible. That will bring security and emergency responders running." Exactly. Sometimes the best way to win an impossible fight is to change the rules of engagement. The fire alarms began blaring with ear-splitting intensity, red lights flashing, automated voice systems announcing evacuation procedures. In the chaos that followed, Noah did something that no one expected. He began helping the operatives. "Let me help you move these people," he called out over the alarm noise, grabbing one end of a gurney. "I know where all the service elevators are." The operative on the other end of the gurney nodded gratefully, his attention focused on the tactical complications created by the fire alarm, rather than on the helpful janitor, who was suddenly making his job easier. What the operative didn't notice was that Noah was systematically identifying which unconscious figures were the high-value targets and which were ordinary hostages. More importantly, he was memorizing faces, positions, and the location of Vivian Vale, who was indeed among the sedated figures being prepared for extraction. "Stairs or elevator?" the operative asked as they maneuvered the gurney toward the building's core. "Elevators faster, but stairs are more secure," Noah replied, drawing on decades of tactical knowledge to give exactly the advice a professional would expect. "Depends on your extraction timeline." "Elevator then. Time is critical." As they loaded gurneys into the service elevator, Noah made his move. The mop handle that had served him so well in the lobby became a lever, jamming the elevator doors at the precise moment when half the operatives were inside the car and half were still in the hallway. "Malfunction," Noah announced with the casual tone of a maintenance worker who had seen this problem before. "These old elevators do this sometimes. Let me see if I can fix it." But instead of fixing anything, Noah was systematically destroying the elevator's control systems with tools from his maintenance cart, ensuring that the trapped operatives would be isolated when Chicago PD's tactical team arrived. The operative in the hallway was beginning to realize that something was wrong when Elena's voice crackled through the building's public address system, overriding the fire alarm with an announcement that changed everything. "Attention, Aurora Tower. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, cybersecurity consultant. The individuals currently in the building are not terrorists. They are foreign intelligence operatives conducting a state-sponsored kidnapping operation. The FBI and NSA have been monitoring this operation for weeks. You are surrounded by federal agents, and any attempt to harm hostages will result in immediate lethal force." It was a complete fabrication, but it was delivered with such authority and technical precision that even Noah almost believed it. More importantly, it created exactly the kind of psychological pressure that would force the architect to accelerate his timeline and make mistakes. The remaining operative in the hallway was now shouting into his radio in rapid Russian, clearly trying to coordinate with superiors who were suddenly dealing with a situation that had spiraled completely out of their control. Noah used the confusion to grab Vivian Vale's unconscious form and begin moving her toward the stairwell, still maintaining his cover as a helpful janitor trying to evacuate injured civilians. "Wait," the operative called out. "That one stays here." "Sir, she's hurt bad. I think she needs medical attention or she might die." "She is more valuable alive, but not your concern. Put her back." This was the moment Noah had been preparing for, the instant when his cover would be blown and violence would become inevitable. But instead of reaching for a weapon, he did something that confused everyone involved. He dropped to his knees beside Vivian Vale and began administering what appeared to be first aid, checking her pulse, examining her pupils, performing the kinds of basic medical assessments that any trained professional might know. "She's going into shock," he announced with clinical authority. "Heart rate's dropping, breathing's shallow. If you want her alive for whatever you're planning, she needs medical intervention now." The operative was caught between following orders to keep Vale secure and the practical necessity of keeping her alive for extraction. In that moment of hesitation, Noah made his second move. The medical kit he had retrieved from his maintenance cart contained several items that weren't typically found in first aid supplies. The syringe he pulled out looked completely legitimate, but instead of medicine, it contained a stimulant cocktail that would bring Vivian Vale back to consciousness in approximately 60 seconds. "This will stabilize her," Noah announced, injecting the contents before the operative could react. What followed was a masterclass in controlled chaos. Vivian Vale regained consciousness, confused, terrified, and completely unaware of her surroundings. The operative tried to restrain her while maintaining his position and radio contact with his team. The elevator continued its mechanical protests as trapped operatives tried to force the doors open. And in the middle of it all, Noah Hale finally dropped his cover and became exactly what he had always been, a federal agent conducting a rescue operation under impossible circumstances. The mop handle caught the operative across the throat, with surgical precision dropping him instantly. Noah's wounded shoulder screamed in protest, but adrenaline and training overrode the pain as he moved to secure the unconscious form. "Ms. Vale," he said quietly, helping the confused CEO to her feet. "I'm Agent Noah Hale, federal law enforcement. You've been drugged and kidnapped, but you're safe now. I need you to follow my instructions exactly." What happened? Where are my guests?" "Most of them are unconscious but alive. We're going to keep it that way. Can you walk?" Vivian Vale nodded, though her coordination was clearly affected by whatever chemical agent had been used to sedate her. Through his earpiece, Noah heard Elena's urgent voice. "The tactical team is in the building. 30 seconds to breach. But Noah, I'm seeing helicopter activity on the roof. If the architect escapes with even partial intelligence—" "He won't," Noah replied grimly. "Elena, I need you to patch me through to the incident commander downstairs." "Done." A new voice crackled through his earpiece. "This is Captain Morrison, Chicago PD. Who am I speaking with?" "Agent Noah Hale, Defense Intelligence Agency. I'm on the 47th floor with CEO Vivian Vale and approximately 40 hostages. The terrorist cell has been neutralized except for their leader, who is attempting roof extraction via helicopter." "Agent Hale, we have no record of your operation. I need verification of your authority." Noah almost laughed at the bureaucratic impossibility of his situation. "Captain, you can verify my credentials after we prevent a state-sponsored kidnapping. Right now, I need your aviation unit to intercept an unauthorized helicopter approaching Aurora Tower's roof." "Sir, we can't just—" The conversation was interrupted by the sound of rotor blades approaching from outside the building. Through the conference room windows, Noah could see navigation lights descending toward Aurora Tower's roof. "Ms. Vale," Noah said urgently, "I need you to understand something. These people weren't just after ransom money. They were after you, specifically your biometric access to Aurora's classified systems. How much damage could they do with complete access to your corporate databases?" Vivian Vale's eyes widened as the implications hit her. "Everything. Government contracts, defense research, financial records for half the Fortune 500. They could destabilize the entire technology sector. Then we can't let them reach that helicopter." Noah helped Vale move toward the stairwell, his mind calculating distances, timing, and the likelihood that he could reach the roof before the architect's extraction was complete. His wounded shoulder made climbing another flight of stairs an agonizing prospect, but the alternative was unthinkable. Behind them, Chicago PD's tactical team was breaching the 47th floor, their entry explosive and professional. Within minutes, they would secure the hostages and neutralize any remaining operatives. But by then, the most dangerous enemy would be airborne and disappearing into Chicago's night sky with intelligence that could reshape the global balance of power. Noah touched his daughter's bracelet one more time and began climbing toward the roof, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether he ever saw Lily again, and whether she would grow up in a world where invisible heroes still had the power to protect the innocent from those who saw people as merely assets to be exploited. The sound of helicopter rotors grew louder with each step, counting down the seconds until either salvation or catastrophe. The roof access door was locked, but Noah's maintenance credentials included override codes that most people never knew existed. As the heavy steel door swung open, Chicago's night air hit him like a physical blow, carrying the roar of helicopter rotors and the distant wail of sirens from the streets below. The Aurora Tower rooftop was a maze of HVAC equipment, satellite dishes, and communication arrays that created perfect cover for what Noah immediately recognized as a military-style extraction operation. The helicopter hovering 20 feet above the building wasn't some hastily chartered civilian aircraft. It was a modified Black Hawk with no visible markings, piloted by someone with serious flight training. "Ms. Vale, stay behind that air conditioning unit and don't move until I tell you," Noah whispered, helping the still disoriented CEO take cover behind the massive industrial equipment. Through his earpiece, Elena's voice crackled with urgency. "Noah, Chicago PD's aviation unit is 3 minutes out, but that helicopter's pilot is already dropping extraction lines. Whatever you're going to do, it has to be now." Across the rooftop, Noah could see the architect for the first time, tall, distinguished, moving with the confident precision of someone who had orchestrated dozens of similar operations. He was supervising the loading of what appeared to be hard drives and data storage devices into a tactical bag, the digital fruits of their infiltration into Aurora's systems. But more concerning were the 3 figures lying motionless on stretchers nearby. High-value targets who had been selected for extraction, individuals whose knowledge and access would be worth millions on the international intelligence market. "Agent Hale," the architect called out over the helicopter noise, his cultured voice carrying easily across the rooftop. "I must admit you have exceeded my expectations. Your federal colleagues described you as competent but unimaginative. They clearly underestimated your potential for creative problem-solving." Noah emerged from cover, his hands visible but ready to move toward the weapons concealed in his maintenance gear. "Let them go, you've got what you came for." "Actually, I'm missing the most important component." The architect gestured toward Vivian Vale's hiding place. "Ms. Vale's biometric authorization is required to decrypt the most sensitive files. Without her cooperation, much of our data is worthless." "She's not going anywhere." The architect smiled, pulling out a device that looked like a modified satellite phone. "Are you certain? Because I have just received confirmation that your daughter's babysitter has been temporarily detained. Little Lily is currently in the care of associates who are awaiting my instructions." Noah felt rage surge through him, but his training kept his expression neutral. "Prove it." The device crackled to life, and Noah heard the most heartbreaking sound imaginable, Lily's voice, confused and frightened. "Daddy, there are strange men here, and Mrs. Patterson won't wake up. They said they need to talk to you. Daddy, I'm scared." "It's okay, sweetheart," Noah said quietly, his voice carrying across the rooftop. "Daddy's coming home soon. Remember what Mommy taught us about being brave? Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you're scared." The architect looked genuinely surprised by this exchange. How touching. "But sentiment will not resolve your tactical situation, Agent Hale. You have 30 seconds to produce Ms. Vale, or your daughter learns what happens to children whose fathers choose heroism over family." Noah closed his eyes for a moment, touching the blue bracelet on his wrist. Sarah's voice echoed in his memory. Sometimes the right choice isn't the safe choice, but it's always the choice you can live with. When he opened his eyes, his expression had changed completely. The worried father was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. "Elena," he whispered into his concealed microphone. "Remember when you said you could access Aurora's building systems?" "Yes, why?" "The roof emergency lighting array. Can you overload it? Create a massive electrical discharge. That would short out everything on the roof, including communications, and oh, that's brilliant. But Noah, you'd be caught in the discharge too." Sometimes you have to trust the equipment to do its job. Noah began walking toward the architect, his hands raised in apparent surrender. "You win. But I want to talk to my daughter one more time before you take Ms. Vale." "Of course. Even monsters can appreciate a father's love." The architect held out the communication device, allowing Noah to get within arm's reach. What he didn't anticipate was that Noah's surrender was actually the final phase of a plan that had been forming since the moment he realized his cover was blown. "Lily, sweetheart, I need you to listen very carefully," Noah said into the device. "Remember the special game Daddy taught you, the one where you count to 10 and then press the red button on the wall by the kitchen? The fire alarm. That's right. Can you do that for Daddy? Count to 10, then press the red button. But you said only press it for real emergencies." "This is a real emergency, sweetheart. I love you more than all the stars in the sky." "I love you too, Daddy." The architect was beginning to realize that something was wrong when Noah suddenly lunged forward, not toward the device but toward the man holding it. The mop handle that had served him so well throughout this nightmarish evening made one final appearance, striking the architect's wrist and sending the communication device spinning across the rooftop. "Elena, now." The building's emergency lighting array exploded in a cascade of electrical fire, creating a blinding strobe effect that turned the rooftop into a disorienting maze of shadows and brilliant flashes. The helicopter pilot, suddenly unable to see his landing zone, clearly pulled up instinctively to avoid collision with the building. In the chaos that followed, Noah tackled the architect with all the fury of a father whose child had been threatened. They rolled across the rooftop's graveled surface, each man fighting with the desperate intensity of someone who understood that losing meant more than just personal defeat. "You cannot stop what we have set in motion," the architect gasped as Noah's hands found his throat. "My death changes nothing. The intelligence we have gathered will reshape the global balance of power." "Maybe," Noah replied grimly, "but you'll never see it happen." The fight was interrupted by a sound that made both men freeze, the distinctive whine of approaching aircraft engines. But these weren't the rotors of the architect's extraction helicopter. These were the twin turbines of military aircraft moving at high speed. "Elena, what the hell is that?" Her voice crackled through his earpiece, filled with amazement and relief. "Remember when you told me to record everything?" "Well, I didn't just record it, I transmitted it. Live feed to every federal agency, every intelligence service, every military command center with the clearance to receive it. Noah, you've got F-16s inbound from the Illinois Air National Guard." The architect's eyes widened as the implications hit him. His carefully planned extraction was about to become a very public international incident, the kind that would expose the entire Meridian collective operation to scrutiny from agencies that could make their lives very difficult. "The data," he said, urgently reaching for the tactical bag containing Aurora's stolen files. "The mission must be completed." Noah's response was to grab the bag first, holding it over the edge of the building. "Here's the thing about data, it's only valuable if it exists. You would not. That information is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. To you, maybe. To me, it's just another way for people like you to hurt innocent families." The sound of the approaching F-16s was now loud enough to rattle windows in nearby buildings. The architect's extraction helicopter was already pulling away its pilot, unwilling to face military interceptors over downtown Chicago. "This is Colonel Sarah Mitchell, Illinois Air National Guard," a new voice crackled through the building's emergency communication system. "Unidentified aircraft over Aurora Tower, you are in violation of restricted airspace. Land immediately or you will be fired upon." The helicopter's response was to accelerate away from the building, disappearing into Chicago's urban landscape, while the F-16s banked to follow. Within minutes, the rooftop went from battlefield to crime scene, the only sounds, the distant sirens and the whisper of wind through the building's communication arrays. Noah sat heavily on the rooftop's edge, still holding the tactical bag, containing what could have been America's most damaging intelligence breach in decades. His shoulder throbbed, his body ached, and his mind was already racing ahead to the next crisis, getting home to Lily. "Ms. Vale," he called out. "You can come out now. It's over." Vivian Vale emerged from behind the air conditioning unit, her expensive dress torn and her makeup smeared, but alive and free. "Agent Hale, I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We still need to make sure your people downstairs are okay, and there's going to be a very long debriefing process." Through his earpiece, Elena's voice carried a note of excitement that cut through the exhaustion. "Noah, I've got good news. Chicago PD just reported that they found Lily safe and sound. Apparently, when she triggered the fire alarm, it activated a silent signal to emergency services. Your apartment building was swarmed by firefighters and police within minutes. The architect's people never had a chance to hurt her." Noah closed his eyes and felt something break loose in his chest. Relief so profound it was almost physical pain. "Is she okay?" "She's fine. Asking for her daddy and complaining that Mrs. Patterson is being too sleepy to make her bedtime snack." "Mrs. Patterson? Sedated but stable. She'll be fine by morning." Noah looked out over Chicago's skyline, each light representing lives that would continue tomorrow, because invisible heroes had done their jobs without recognition or reward. In a few hours, the media would descend on Aurora Tower with cameras and questions trying to understand how a janitor had single-handedly prevented an international incident. They would get the surface story, the courage, the action, the dramatic confrontation on the rooftop. But they would miss the deeper truth that heroes weren't made by dramatic moments, but by daily choices, by the decision to show up when others couldn't or wouldn't, by the willingness to be overlooked and underestimated in service of something larger than yourself. "Agent Hale," Captain Morrison's voice crackled through his earpiece. "We've secured the building. All hostages are accounted for and receiving medical attention. Federal agents are en route to debrief you and process the crime scene." "Copy that, Captain. I'll be down shortly." But first, Noah pulled out his personal phone and dialed a number he knew by heart. "Daddy?" Lily's voice was small and tired, but beautifully alive. "Hi, sweetheart. I heard you were very brave tonight. I pressed the red button like you said, and I wasn't too scared even when the strange men were here. Mrs. Patterson is sleeping a lot, but the police lady said she just needs rest. You did perfect, Lily. Daddy's coming home now. Did you save people tonight like a superhero?" Noah looked at the mop handle lying beside him on the rooftop, its cotton strands stained with the evidence of a night that would change everything. Tomorrow there would be congressional hearings, media interviews, award ceremonies, and commendations. People would want to understand how an invisible janitor had become a visible hero. But tonight, there was only a father's promise to his daughter. "I just did my job, sweetheart. Sometimes that's enough. Will you read me a story when you get home? As many stories as you want." 3 months later, Noah stood in the Aurora Tower lobby watching workmen install a bronze plaque near the security desk. The words were simple, elegant, and completely inadequate to capture what had happened here. In memory of those who serve without recognition, who protect without glory, and who remind us that heroism comes in many forms. Sometimes the most important heroes are the ones nobody sees. Vivian Vale approached from across the lobby, her heels clicking on marble that had been replaced and polished to remove all traces of that terrible night. She looked different, more grounded, less focused on appearances, more aware of the people who kept her world functioning. Noah, thank you for coming to the dedication ceremony. Wouldn't miss it. He gestured toward the plaque. Though I think you're being a little dramatic. Am I? The federal investigation found that the Meridian Collective had infiltrated over a dozen major corporations. If they had succeeded here, if they had extracted those intelligence assets and stolen our data, the economic damage would have been catastrophic. Noah shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. With the right skills, the right courage, and the right heart. Vale's expression grew serious. I've learned a lot about myself in the last 3 months. About the kind of leader I want to be, the kind of company I want to run. We're implementing new security protocols, but more importantly, we're changing our culture. Every employee matters. Every person who works in this building deserves to be seen respected and protected. Across the lobby, Noah spotted a familiar figure, Elena Vasquez, now Aurora's chief security officer, reviewing security briefings with a team of analysts. She caught his eye and waved her expression, carrying the quiet satisfaction of someone who had found her calling. She's working out well, Vale observed, following his gaze. Elena's good people. She understands that security isn't just about technology, it's about trust. Speaking of which, I have something for you. Vale handed him an envelope bearing the Aurora corporate seal. It's a job offer. Head of corporate security reporting directly to me. The salary is substantial. Noah opened the envelope and whistled softly at the figures. It was enough to secure Lily's future, to buy a house in a safe neighborhood, to never worry about making ends meet again. It's generous, Ms. Vale, but I'm not sure corporate security is for me. What about federal consulting? Homeland Security has contracted with Aurora to develop new threat assessment protocols. They specifically requested that you lead the program. Noah considered this carefully. It would mean using his skills in service of something worthwhile, staying close to home, being the kind of father Lily deserved while still protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. I'll think about it. Take all the time you need. The offer will remain open. As Vale walked away, Noah's phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Patterson. Lily's school play starts in 30 minutes. She made me promise to remind you about the front row seats she saved for her favorite superhero. Noah smiled and headed for the elevator, his reflection catching in the polished doors. He looked like any other professional in an expensive suit, but he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had been tested and had not been found wanting. The Aurora Tower lobby bustled with activity executives, hurrying to meetings, security guards conducting their rounds, maintenance staff keeping everything clean and functional. But now Noah noticed something different. People made eye contact. Security guards knew the names of the cleaning crew. Executives said thank you to the staff who made their lives easier. Sometimes changing the world started with changing how people saw each other. An hour later, Noah sat in the front row of Jefferson Elementary School's multi-purpose room, watching his daughter perform in a play about community helpers. She had insisted on playing a firefighter, complete with a helmet that was slightly too big and a coat that dragged on the floor. Firefighters help people when they're in danger, Lily announced to the audience, her 8-year-old voice carrying clearly through the room. They're brave and strong, and they don't give up even when things are scary. During the applause that followed, Lily's eyes found Noah in the audience. She pointed at him with obvious pride, as if she were sharing a secret that only the two of them understood. After the play, as they walked to his Honda Civic in the school parking lot, Lily slipped her hand into his. "Daddy, are you still just a janitor?" Noah considered the question carefully. "What do you think, sweetheart?" "I think maybe you're a janitor who's also other things. Like how I'm a student who's also a firefighter when I need to be." "That's very wise. Mrs. Henderson said you're famous now. She saw you on the news." "A little bit famous, maybe." "Will you still help me with my homework, even if you're famous?" Noah stopped walking and knelt down so he was at Lily's eye level. "Sweetheart, I will always be your daddy first. Everything else is just details." She hugged him fiercely, her small arms wrapping around his neck with the absolute trust that only children could give. "I love you, Daddy. Even when you're famous, you're still my favorite person in the whole world." As they drove home through Chicago's evening streets, Noah's phone rang with a call from Director Morrison, the same supervisor who had ordered him to abandon his mission 3 months ago. "Agent Hale, I hope you'll consider returning to active duty. After your performance at Aurora Tower, every agency in Washington wants you on their team." "I appreciate that, Director, but I think I'm more effective working from the outside. The President herself has asked to meet with you. There's talk of a Presidential Medal of Freedom." Noah glanced in the rearview mirror at Lily, who was contentedly coloring in a book about superheroes. "That's very kind, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that level of attention." "Agent Hale, what you did at Aurora Tower has already inspired changes in how we approach domestic security. Your methods, your insights, your ability to see threats that others miss. The country needs people like you." "The country has people like me, Director. They're working security guards who stay alert during long shifts. They're maintenance workers who notice when something doesn't belong. They're teachers who recognize when a student is in trouble. The heroes aren't the ones who get medals, they're the ones who show up every day and do the right thing without expecting recognition." A long pause. "You've changed, Hale." "No, sir. I just remembered who I was supposed to be." That evening, as Noah tucked Lily into bed, she pulled out a new drawing she had made during art class. It showed 2 figures standing in front of a tall building, a small girl in pigtails and a tall man in a suit, but he was holding a mop. "It's us," she explained, "after your adventure." "What do you think the moral of the story is?" Noah asked, sitting on the edge of her bed. Lily considered this with the seriousness that she brought to all important questions. "I think it's that heroes don't have to wear capes or have special powers. They just have to care about people and be willing to help when help is needed." "That's exactly right. And sometimes the best heroes are the ones who seem ordinary, but are actually extraordinary on the inside." Noah kissed her forehead and turned off the light, leaving only the soft glow of her nightlight to illuminate the room. "Sweet dreams, sweetheart." "Daddy, yes, I'm proud of you. Not because you're famous or because you were on the news. I'm proud of you because you're brave and kind and you always come home." As Noah sat in his living room later that night reviewing security consulting proposals and job offers, he thought about legacy, not the kind that got written in newspapers or history books, but the kind that lived on in the hearts of people who had been touched by ordinary courage. His phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "Saw the memorial dedication on the news. Beautiful ceremony. How does it feel to be officially recognized as a hero?" Noah typed back, "Ask me in 20 years when Lily's grown up safe and happy. That's the only recognition that matters." The blue bracelet on his wrist caught the light from his reading lamp. Its simple message unchanged by everything that had happened, breathe. Sarah's wisdom, filtered through their daughter's love, had carried him through the darkest moments of his life and reminded him that heroism wasn't about dramatic gestures. It was about showing up, staying present, and choosing love over fear every single day. Outside his apartment window, Chicago's skyline glittered with promise, each light representing lives that would continue tomorrow, because invisible heroes were watching, protecting, and serving without recognition or reward. The Aurora Tower stood among them, its lights a reminder that sometimes the most important battles were fought not by armies or governments, but by ordinary people who refused to let darkness win. Noah Hale had been many things: soldier, agent, father, hero. But tonight, he was simply a man who had kept his promise to come home safe to the little girl who believed in him. In a world full of complicated problems and sophisticated threats, that simple truth remained the most powerful force of all. The janitor's mop sat in his closet, retired but not forgotten. A symbol of the power that came from being underestimated, overlooked, and willing to do whatever it took to protect the people you loved. Sometimes the most important heroes were indeed the ones nobody saw, until the moment when everyone needed to see them.